This week on Vaticano, Rome has become a center for peace talks between the opposition and official government of South Sudan. We take you into the conversation. Also, meet Alexandre Havard, professor and inspirational Catholic speaker, and visit a makeshift farm built at the Vatican for the feast of St. Anthony Abbot. For this and more, Vaticano starts now. The Pope's final document on last October's Amazon Synod is expected to be released in February of 2020. It's possible that this document, known as a post-synodal apostolic exhortation, could include provisions for married priests under some conditions in the Latin Rite of the Roman Catholic Church. At around the same time as the exhortation's publication, the book From the Depths of Our Hearts, which aims to defend priestly celibacy in the Latin Rite, is set to be released in the United States. The book includes chapters written by Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI and Cardinal Robert Sarah, prefect of the Vatican's Congregation for Divine Worship and the Discipline of the Sacraments. The Pope Emeritus, in his chapter, examines the history of the priesthood in the Old and New Testaments. At its release in Europe in January, the book was presented as co-authored by Benedict XVI and Cardinal Sarah. In reality, Benedict just authored a part. After some initial confusion, Benedict's personal secretary, Archbishop Georg Ganswein, asked that the Pope Emeritus's name be taken off sections written completely by Cardinal Sarah. It's simply a matter of correctly assigning the authorship. It's not about changes in content, Ganswein told CNA Deutsch. Cardinal Sarah sent a tweet saying that future editions of the book will list him alone as the author, with a contribution by Benedict XVI. However, he said, the full text remains absolutely unchanged. Holy See Press Office Director Matteo Bruni stated that Pope Francis considers celibacy as a gift to the Church. However, there is room for exceptions when there is a pastoral necessity, as suggested during the Amazonian Synod. To dispel confusion and to bring an end to the week-long controversy, Cardinal Sarah met with Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI at the end of the week, tweeting that there is no misunderstanding between the two. New Grandmaster of the Equestrian Order of the Holy Sepulchre, Cardinal Fernando Filoni, was officially welcomed by the Knights at their Palazzo della Rovere headquarters on January the 16th. The former prefect of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples received the investiture in the so-called throne room during a ceremony with his predecessor, Cardinal Edwin O'Brien.
What will I miss most? It would be, I guess, the sense of responsibility, the sense of mission. I will still pray, I will still work in other capacities to promote the mission of the order.
After receiving the Knight's collar insignia, Cardinal Filoni gave his first public address as Grandmaster.
I would like to be able to say that I am almost the parish priest of this great parish, scattered over all the continents. Today, we begin a new chapter in the history of the Order, a history rich in events and gestures that have ennobled it.
At the end of the ceremony, he was able to meet personally with all the staff members before going to the chapel for a moment of silent prayer in the company of Cardinal O'Brien. Groups inspired by the charism of St. Vincent de Paul for the first time ever met in Rome at the Pontifical Patristicum University next to St. Peter's Square. It's an historic moment for the Vincentian family, where the fellows could strengthen unity in fulfillment of their charism of evangelization and work for the poor.
What is very useful, very important is that we work in collaboration, in kind of organized with you can say a center that kind of links all the different branches, all the different congregations together.
The Vincentian family is a body of many groups, all inspired by the work and life of Saint Vincent de Paul, a 17th century French priest. The family includes religious members such as priests, brothers and sisters, and also lay volunteers. It counts on about 160 entities on 6 continents.
There are some congregations, some lay groups that I also first time that I meet and that we meet each other, and this is a very important point. If there are congregations, if there are groups that are inspired by the St. Vincent de Paul spirituality, charism, his way of understanding and following the gospel, write to us. Get in touch with us, and we're very happy to get in touch with you.
Recently, the Vincentian family celebrated the 400th anniversary of its foundation by Saint Vincent de Paul, and they continue rigorously working for evangelization.
Over 1.8 trillion US dollars were spent last year on military purposes. This huge sum, compared with the modest amount allocated to humanitarian aid, could have been enough to ensure that nations could live in peace and dignity.
Last year at the UN in Geneva, during the International Day of Peace, the permanent mission of San Marino to the UN and the Association of the Community of Pope John XXIII promoted discussion about peacebuilding and reconciliation through the creation of ministries of peace.
The creation of a Ministry of Peace is important because as our founder, Father Oreste Benzi, the founder of the Association Community Pope John XXIII, to which I belong, was used to say, for centuries, mankind has organized war. It has come now the time to organize peace. We, as a community Pope John XXIII, we have seen that the Ministry of Peace may be the best infrastructure to implement the right to peace and to make a step forward for guaranteeing a peace that is really a positive peace, not just the absence of war, but a peace that is strictly linked with the respect of human rights and with development and the implementation also of the right to development. And we were glad because during our side event on the 20th, we were not expecting this result, but anyway, there were 12 permanent missions of states present, maybe in incognito, not all of them, they show the flag and so on, but it was important because our message is mainly for states.
States, they say, must cooperate in implementing peace at an international level, building peaceful societies that respect human rights.
All around the world in the history, apart the big examples of Gandhi, Martin Luther King and so on, there have been plenty of examples in very big conflicts of non-violent movements that have had great achievements in restoring peace and reconciliation. So really the Ministry of Peace valorizing all these non-violent examples and educating on these, breaking the mentality of war, of that is going on, also of the just war that now the Church, fortunately with Pope Francis, starts also to reject, can contribute to build up a mentality, that can really contribute greatly to the achievement of peace.
Many states have a long history of choosing neutrality and investing in diplomacy for the peaceful settlement of disputes. But only Costa Rica, the Republic of San Marino, and a few others have actually created a Ministry of Peace. Pope Francis received the President of the Democratic Republic of the Congo in private audience in the Vatican. The country is still suffering from the persistent armed conflict and the spread of the Ebola virus. Mr. Tshisekedi gave Pope Francis a painting from the North Kivu region, which is affected by the fighting. Then the Pope gave the President his message for this year's World Day of Peace and an engraving of an angel of peace. African countries have a special place in the heart of Pope Francis. During his pontificate, the Pope has traveled 4 times to the continent and made countless appeals for peace in Africa. The Republic of South Sudan and the South Sudan Opposition Movement's Alliance have signed a peace declaration in Rome.
First and foremost, we came together here in appreciation to the tireless effort of the Holiness Pope, His Holiness Pope Francis, when he called the leadership of our country and begged them for peace for our people, and he knelt before the whole world and kissed their feet. I would like to express to him, on behalf of the Opposition Movement's Alliance and on behalf of our people, that we are ashamed. We have caused this war to our people and among ourselves. We are ashamed that peace has delayed and eluded us.
Paolo Impagliazzo, Secretary General of the community of Sant'Egidio and one of the peace agreement negotiators, explains.
We signed a very important document, this Rome Declaration on the peace process in South Sudan. It is really very important because the parties, the government of South Sudan with a very high-level delegation and the South Sudan Opposition Movement Alliance, that are the non-signatories to the Addis Ababa Peace Agreement of 2018, they were together and they agree to adhere to the cessation of the hostilities agreement of December 2017. So this is a major achievement of this meeting.
So why should our people suffer?
These peace talks in Rome were facilitated by the Catholic community of Sant'Egidio. The community is a lay Catholic movement. It previously worked with the peace process in Mozambique and the Ivory Coast.
They are Christians. They are more or less all of them are Christians, the delegates here. So for them to start the meeting with the prayer was very important. They attended the Holy Mass on Saturday evening in Sant'Egidio, so faith was very important for us, for sure, and the fact that Pope Francis is so engaged in their country, for them is something that they cannot forget.
The Vatican hosted South Sudan's political leaders for a peace-building retreat in April of 2019, at which Pope Francis famously knelt to kiss the feet of the President of South Sudan and the leader of the opposition movement. Pope Francis, who doesn't have any international trips scheduled as yet for 2020, has repeatedly expressed his hope that he will be able to visit South Sudan, along with the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, in the coming year. In a few moments, we'll be back with more on Vaticano.
The magnanimous person is not only a person that has a dream, A magnanimous person is someone who transforms his dreams into mission, into action.
Alexandre Havard, Catholic inspirational speaker and leader of the Virtuous Leadership Institute, shared his knowledge with students at the Pontifical University of St. Thomas Aquinas in Rome. The place and the audience were very significant because at the core of Alexandre's teaching is the virtue of magnanimity, which was introduced to the Christian world by Thomas Aquinas himself, and which can only be understood fully within a Christian framework.
The ancient Greeks has the idea of what they call megalopsychia, which was the greatness of soul. It was a virtue. And for Aristotle, the virtue of magnanimity is the virtue of a man or woman who considers himself or herself worthy of great things. So this virtue, of course, can be Christianized because we Christians were children of God. So we are worthy of great things, obviously. So magnanimity is based on a vision of your personal dignity, a vision of an exalted dignity of the human person. So if you understand what it means to be a child of God, to be a daughter of God, to be a son of God, then you have all the foundation to practice the virtue of magnanimity.
While magnanimity is a virtue that fully embraces Christian meaning, it's rather unknown. Alexandre says that unfortunately, out of a false modesty, magnanimity is being forsaken. But without the virtue of magnanimity, it's impossible to strive for holiness, which is the aim of life for every Christian. To explain it, Alexandre recalls the parable of the talents.
Because those talents come from God. They are not yours. You have received them. And if you're not aware of your talents, this is a lack of gratitude. It is not humility. It's a lack of gratitude. And we see, unfortunately, many Christians who, in the name of modesty, practice the vice of pusillanimity, the vice of small-mindedness, the vice of false humility. And there is no place for leadership, of course, in the soul, in the mind, and in the heart of such people. There are very few Catholics that have real position, influential in the world. And many Catholics tell me it's because the Masons, the Bolshevik, all those guys threw us out of politics, of business. The answer is not, is that you left business. You left politics out of false modesty.
This contemporary crisis, according to Alexandre, is a crisis of greatness, which can only be addressed by the practice of magnanimity. Another core topic for Alexandre is the defense of the institution of the family, as the family is the best environment for learning the essential virtues of leadership.
I think it's a big problem for Christians who have been educated in humility, but in a humility devoid of magnanimity. When you speak 2 hours to your children about humility, you have to speak 2 hours of magnanimity. If not, you are not educating your children in humility, you are educating them in pusillanimity, in small-mindedness, and that's a crime.
Alexandre is convinced that God creates every person to strive for greatness. And he even left his career as a prominent lawyer in France and Finland to dedicate all of his strength to igniting hearts for greatness. His best-selling books, Virtuous Leadership, Created for Greatness, and From Temperament to Character, have been translated into 20 languages. The Virtuous Leadership Institute, under Alexandre's direction, has grown to 10 locations around the world, each born with a quest to raise up a new generation of virtuous leaders. Stock animals and their breeders from central Italy were back in the Vatican again this year for the feast of St. Anthony Abbot. Hundreds of breeders came to St. Peter's first to participate in Mass in St. Peter's Basilica, celebrated by Cardinal Angelo Comastri, and then to receive the special blessing in a small improvised farm under the Vatican sky.
Today we are here with our breeders because it's important for the farmers to have the benediction of St. Anthony.
Similar to Silverio, Alessandro is a breeder who bonded with his horse, Cavallo Tolfetano.
Questi cavalli sono una razza molto di testa.
These horses are a very smart breed. They're very docile. They could work as drafting horses and could do performances. These are optimal specimens. A 4-year-old horse, and for the first time it comes here in the middle of these people, and it behaves quite well.
Ottimi come soggetti.
The breeding manager of Coldiretti, Giorgio Apostoli, tells us that because of the difficulties that farmers encounter, they change craft, and because of that, during the last few years, Italy has lost around 2 million valuable species of livestock and poultry.
Purtroppo dobbiamo anche dire ai cittadini che
Many farmers have to suffer the fact that they don't have enough outcome for the products they sell, which is milk, meat, and therefore it puts the farmer's survival at risk.
This year, the event is dedicated in particular to the theme of the value of the farming family and respect for creation, to encourage people working in farming and agriculture.